So anybody that hasn't been keeping up, I'm going to go ahead and just kind of explain what I'm doing and why. Just kind of as a disclaimer before we get into this, that way everybody knows what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. Ultimately, I'm just trying to create peace in this world and get people from both sides to sit down and create peace. And that's all I'm really doing. It's just trying to get people to peacefully get along. And so I had a little boy. He was born premature, and he was here for about 6 weeks, and he passed away. And when he passed away, I was able to hold him in my arms, and I promised him I'd do all I could to try and help make the world a better place. And that's just all I'm trying to do. So I look for solutions to all the problems that the world is facing right now. So if there's a problem, I look at it and I say, okay, what's the most logical solution? How are we going to figure this out? And that's where I'm at with abortion and where we're at right now. So what I tend to try to do is take my feelings, take my thoughts, take everything out of the equation, and just look at it from a logical point of view on how can we create a solution. So my personal thoughts and ideas on this don't matter as much as what I'm trying to achieve, I guess. So maybe try and stay with me on this and look at the big picture. The way I see things is that the government tries to divide and conquer us as much as possible. If they can keep us fighting amongst ourselves, they can keep power, they can create laws, they can do all this stuff. And so they always try to keep us fighting. And abortion is one that they can bust out at any time and guaranteed to make people fight. It's guaranteed. It's like their go-to, the magic one in their back pocket, where they're like, oh man, we're in trouble, let's do this one, and they'll bust out the abortion card. And it gets everybody so fiery because there is no real answer on how to make it work, because at the end of the day, it's all about perception. And you got to think about it just from a logical standpoint. And instead of thinking just from your side, I'm going to open up a broader idea here and say, Republicans and people who are pro-life, will you ever sit and talk to somebody who is for abortion and suddenly be like, oh, you know what, that makes sense to me, I now believe in abortion, and then just be absolutely for abortion? Will that ever happen? We all know the answer is no. Nobody is ever going to suddenly go, you know what, I am staunch against abortion, and I am suddenly just, you know what, I'm for it. And there may be rare occurrences of 0.05% or something, but it's rare. It's very rare, and in reality, it's not really going to happen. So logically, that isn't an idea, and the same goes for the other hand. Somebody who is for abortion, I'm going to flip the question right back to you and say, hey, you're for abortion, and that's what you believe. Do you ever think that somebody who is anti-abortion is going to come to you and be like, pro-life is the way, please see things my way? And do you think that you're just going to suddenly switch your ideas and just suddenly believe in pro-life? And I don't see that as a possibility either. I don't think that you'll ever just switch like that. And once again, there'll be a 0.05% that'll switch occasionally or whatever, but as a whole, that's the realistic possibility of that happening isn't feasible. So we have to look at things from this standpoint, that we will never change somebody else's point of view. And at that point, we have to understand that life is all about perspective, and we have to try and accept somebody else's perspective as much as we can't stand it. And my personal perspective, I'll just be honest, I think that there's only two ways to look at this. And I see both sides, because ultimately I believe in freedom, and freedom is paramount to life and peace and everything. So the first standpoint is that what creates a life, and that when there's a baby in the womb, that's life. And me personally, I feel that the second the sperm hits the egg, that's a life. That the heartbeat and stuff, that's a different debate, but I think that heartbeat or not, that's still a life. I mean, a heartbeat doesn't really make much of a difference. It's still a life before that. And so there are people who could even take it before that and go and say that, technically condoms or whatever take a life, because, everybody has a different perspective. But fundamentally, it seems hard to deny that once the sperm hits the egg, that is now created a life. I mean, that's the start of a human. That's the very essential, basic start. So that is basically my perception and a lot of pro-life people's perception. And that is an absolute way to perceive it, you know? I mean, clearly that is a reality and a fact that we can say. But on the other hand, there's a different way to perceive it. And the other way to perceive it is that the life is not a life until it takes its first breath, until it becomes out of the womb and is separated from its mother and takes a breath and goes, I'm alive. And so until that body comes out of the womb and takes a breath, it is part of the mother's body. And the mother has absolute freedom to do what she wants with her body and her life and make her own decisions, because she's the one that is in control of her destiny and her reality. And so, sorry, I had to fly there. Anyways, so as hard as it is for some of us to perceive, because we don't see the same perception, we don't perceive things that way, but at the end of it, that's how some people do perceive things. And it is a woman's free will to choose what she wants with her body. I think that the body control of our own entity is essential, just like the vaccine debate. You can't say that, well, you can't ever come in contact with anybody's body, and you can take the same debate for either side and be like, well, if you think that we should have absolute control of our bodies and not have control of vaccines, then the same debate applies towards abortion. And if you don't believe that, if you believe in abortion and we should have absolute right to our bodies, then you should believe that we shouldn't be forced to take vaccines. And it's just, everybody's mind was able to flip on that one just because of propaganda that was put on us. And I don't understand how logic can kind of be twisted so much, but I'm going to step away from that and just go back to the fact that that's somebody else, that's their perception to see things that way, and we'll never change that. So since we won't ever change our ways of perception and we just both perceive things, what would be the most logical solution to this? How do we overcome this constant division and difference of perceptions? I think that on the federal government and state level, that money can control everything, and that's not run by we the people. So fundamentally, we have to put the power in the people's hands and just let us decide locally, in local communities, in local counties, and county by county, community by community. We decide what laws we want to enact. And if we want to be pro-life, we put a ban on abortion in our county. And that's what we choose, what we the people in our county choose. And if you don't like it, go out, rally the people, and make a difference locally and change it and see if you can change the laws. If you can't, and that really bothers you, go somewhere to where they do have abortion and live there and keep the laws the way you want them. And fundamentally, we can do this with all laws, not just abortion. And we can create what's called a home rule charter, to where we the people stand up, we step away from the federal government, and we do basically a state of mind that I'm calling localism, to where we locally secede from the federal government and we do it legally with the people, and then from there we create our own laws and ways of life. And as long as no victim is created and we're not harming anybody, we should be free to decide what we want locally. So that's in my book and stuff, no victim, no crime, and then if there is, due process must occur. And then based it on the Bill of Rights. The Bill of Rights should be the foundation for our society, really, is because that's the only thing that gives we the people the power, and that's what should be running the government. Anyways, that is pretty much my solution on abortion, is that we locally, just county to county even, vote in our ways of life, and we just deal with our decisions, and all we can do is what we can locally, and we just worry about ourselves, where we're at and where we live, and go from there. And if somebody over in another county or another state wants to decide their own fate that way, that's free for them to do that. And if somebody wants to do the opposite here where we're at, or wherever you're at, and everybody's free to do their own thing. Like I said, just as long as no victim, no crime. And this is where the hardest debate is because there's pretty much a victim on either side, whichever way you look at it. If you take a baby's life, that baby is a victim. If you force the baby to stay in the mother, that mother is a victim. So either way, it's all about perception. It's just one's own individual perception, and we have to understand that we will never change somebody else's perception. And instead of fighting endlessly about it, just say, well, okay, I get it. We're going to just create our own ways locally and just vote it in and see what happens and go from there. And just that's all we really can do. And that's pretty much my solution. And just sit down with the person across the table from you and say, you know what, you believe something different. I don't agree with you, but I'll still get along with you, and we'll go from there. And abortion's pretty much the hardest one. Everything else is pretty cut and dried because there is no double victim like there is in abortion. Because and that's why government focuses on this one, because it gets, and that's why it gets everybody so passionate and so fiery, because no matter what, you're creating a victim on either side, and that's why this is such a hard debate. But all the rest of them is pretty easy, but this one's difficult. This one's really difficult. So I appreciate everybody staying along with me and maybe trying to look at things from a different point of view. And I know it's a hard one to hit, but just maybe ponder on it, and let's just work together to try and create peace in this world. And if we lose on our whatever side we think we're going for or want to go for, we just have to own up to it and maybe try again in 4 years, or just deal with the way it is, and or change our where we're staying. I mean, that's kind of all we can do. But giving the federal government absolute power to dictate all our lives is not the answer. That's never the answer, and it's too broad and overbearing and controlling, and the government should be there for minimal needs, not every little thing we need in life. So that's just, like I said, my personal perspective, but logically it makes sense, and I'll gladly debate anybody. 573-286-8316. And like I said, if we could please get people to peacefully sit down and just talk about this stuff, I would love to be a mediator, because like I said, I'm kind of, I don't know, I see all perspectives, I guess. I'm empathetic. I try to see all sides, but yeah, so if anybody wants to sit down and peacefully talk about this, maybe we can just lead the way, because our politicians can't seem to do it. So maybe right here in our local community we could do it, make a video, and show the world it can be done. So I appreciate it, everybody. Love y'all. Stay positive, you guys. We got this. We can do this. Thanks, guys.